So what I want you all to start out doing first, I know you all, but how about, whoever wants to go first, let's just introduce yourself to the people so we know who you are. They know who you are.
All right, I'll go ahead. So my name is Reggie Lee. I coach high school football at Thomasville High School in North Carolina. I am also a student support specialist with communities in schools, where our motto is giving the kids the resources they need to graduate high school. And obviously, I am a Black man with some concerns and a lot of my own viewpoints on how things are set up. And I look to hopefully impart knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, upon everybody that has a chance to view this and pick from it what they need.
Thank you.
All right. Well, my name is Michael Thomas. I want to give you a little bit of my background so you'll kind of understand the angle and probably from which I'm having the discussion. I grew up in a small town in the Delta, in Arkansas, Mississippi. My mother had a minimum education. My father was actually a drug dealer, shot, left paralyzed. Life was tough growing up as a kid. Drugs, alcohol abuse. And so from that perspective, I had to create this persona of who I am, which I sometimes now, label myself or brand myself as Michael Bootcamp Thomas, because it's actually who I needed to become in order to survive. So from that perspective, yeah, I was growing up as a kid called bad, so I didn't as a kid feel, any form of depression based on all of my circumstances. I just reacted to it in a way of sometimes cursing matches, fighting, or whatever I needed to do to, however I needed to express it in order to survive. So that's pretty much, so that's in my childhood. And, I went on to the military, and that was great for me because it provided a ton of structure. And once I began to get some understanding on how to survive, and to, I then wanted to, my passion was to work with youth. So I got out of the military and I went to work at Department of Juvenile Justice because I wanted to give, boys that grew up like I did an opportunity to really change their life and reach for, a really, really good life. So, and I went to work at the fire department. I retired in 2018. I own a gym, and, there I help people to exercise and to help with depression and anxiety and eat well. And I teach, life skills to young people. So that's the work that I do. That's kind of who I am. Just give you a little background so you maybe if you'll be able to plug the pieces in terms of some of my discussions.
You have a book, don't you?
I do have a book. I do have a book.
I'm just here to get a reminder.
Yes, I did write a book. I'm gonna grab it.
Don't grab that book.
Yeah.
Let me grab this book. Yeah, it's.
I had a feeling you might forget.
Yes. So it's called Financial Literacy Boot Camp for Teens and Young Adults, and I teach college and high school and young adults financial literacy. So that's.
Hold it back up again. Part of it is blurred. Wait a minute, right there. Wait a minute. Go back to go down a little bit. It's kind of blurry. It was okay.
I think just
Gotcha.
the way I have my Zoom camera set up.
We'll let you tell. What's the name of the book again?
Financial Literacy Boot Camp for Teens and Young Adults.
Okay. All right. So just so they can write it down or whatever. And where can they get it?
Amazon. It's actually,
All
you can pick it up on Amazon.
All right. Thank you. All right. So whoever wants to go first again, you chose your topics. And so whoever wants to go first and, tell the people, what you want to talk about. And then, like I said, we'll just you take 15, 20 minutes or however each, or however we'll monitor the time. And but whoever wants to go first, I'm just here to sit back and listen, and I might have a question at the end.
Well, maybe me and Reggie have a conversation. I did a little bit of research to kind of get a conversation started, and it talked about mental health for for Black men, and some of the reasons for it was, of course, was race and discrimination. Sometimes a lack of being able to realize our dreams. You know, we've now reached this age of 45 and 50, and much of what we had in mind has not materialized. And sometimes it's, you know, not being able to earn enough, you know, income, and of course some of the childhood issues that we may have suffered or struggled with growing up, and, you know, particularly sometimes not having the best father or having an absent father in the house. So I kind of see all of those at play from, you know, from time to time. I don't know about you, Reg, but
Yeah,
I don't.
definitely. Definitely. Yeah, all of those things are at play. And one of the other things that I can add to that is, after reading, and this has been recently, after reading the ISIS papers by Francis Cress Welsing, and starting to understand how race was not really a part of early human life, and then gaining that understanding on how race is used against us in telling us a lot of these things that they say we are as black men, kind of creates a false sense of, I'm not saying we don't need help, but it kind of creates a false sense of feeling like we are the only ones that needs help.
Mhm.
And it actually adds to the pressure that we deal with.
Sure. So, you know, I can see that. But in addition to that, I can also see the fact that what we feel often, we're told that it's not true when we know 100% certain that, you know, it comes up with all of these things. You know, for instance, we just had you know, a mass killing, and we still having to prove that racism is still alive and well in America, you know. So having to deal with really smart people that know the truth, and still they telling us that you can't believe what you're seeing and what you're feeling. I think that creates sometimes a sense of hopelessness, or a feeling of, you know, how can we win?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely so. And that's probably you know, that's probably, you know, like if you think like on the street level, you see these guys out here that think that the street life is the only thing that they can shoot for to gain some type of success. And I think that comes from that what you just spoke of, you know, that sense of not believing or not thinking that we can achieve. And it pushes us to where we feel like we can find some success a lot of times. And unfortunately, a lot of times that is in the street.
Exactly. And all over, you know, that's kind of what I experienced growing up, you know, with my watching my father and other people in my lives, you know, especially like, man, trying to be somebody, you know, trying to, you know, to be successful, you know, in a large way. Oftentimes we, you know, when there is not a direct path that we can see, that we believe in ourselves, then we'll turn to sometimes illegal behavior to actually make it. But you know, that need to make it is actually, you know, it's the same thing that a lot of our professional athletes use to actually as motivation and energy to actually do well. I mean, when they're dunking and they making these hard hits on the football, they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. They you know, it's got something to prove that, you know, what you did, you know, and sometimes we go even with that too far, we end up fighting battles that we've already won over and over again, to the point where we go a little bit too far with that. So yeah, so having these young guys every day see what's going on, and then they've been told that it's not true, I certainly can see how it can create a sense of hopelessness.
And two, you know, we probably don't have enough example of us that have actually so-called made it, you know, for them to see within especially in small towns, probably like the one you grew up in, definitely like Thomasville. Um, it's almost like, and we have examples here, but it's almost like there's a disconnect between young men that see examples, but maybe for some reason still don't feel like they can do it. And that's an issue that has been bugging me. It's like, how do we draw that connection? How do we impart that connection to where, okay, you see me or you see somebody else that has achieved. How come you don't feel like you can do it too?
Exactly. And that's one of the ways and one of the reasons why I tell my story. There's parts of it that, that's still hurtful. But in order to, to have them to see there's not a lot of difference between me and them, I said, in spite of all of the difficulties that America has presented us, it's still the greatest country in the world, because it's one of the only countries that you can, grow up in some of the poorest and harshest conditions and still with a few, good decisions and some hard work, you can tremendously change your circumstances and the lifestyle that you've lived. And I'm that example. But still with that, I still have to battle a lot of what we're talking about. So just getting them across the finish line at first of how they're going to earn a living and be able to provide for themselves in a meaningful way, it's just it's the first goal. Then it's, how do you exist and still be well in a place that, where, sometimes you have leaders of the country that's in the Senate and Congress and the White House, sometimes creating policies and saying things that takes us back to before civil rights, that, just really still blow my mind. So but with that said, we have other great examples, but I'll pause there so we can talk about, some of the examples that we see that gives me hope and just remind me that, in spite of what we currently see, we still have a lot to be proud of.
So how much of uh, our mental health struggle do you think is really, or do you think should be separated from being Black men? So what I'm asking is, a lot of the things that we struggle with mentally, a lot of them are people struggles, not being able to find your purpose, not knowing how to invoke that purpose, just not knowing how to talk about things that happened to you when you were younger. Not knowing how to deal with not making enough money to keep your bills paid. Those are people things.
Mhm.
So if you can alleviate the part that, because a lot of the pressure comes from our society creating this atmosphere that says all of this stuff that's wrong with you is because you're a Black man. And that's not true. So how much of that can we separate from this struggle in order to uh, elevate our mental health?
Well, so I agree with you is that these are people problems, regardless of what your race, may happen to be. How, you know, and however, I think it's multiplied sometimes when you're Black, because, you know, I have to then go back and look at the circumstances and the situation that actually, actually elevate all of these people problems. But with that said, you're right. Being able to find your purpose when you can't put any paint on the wall, when you can't see a clear picture of exactly who you are, where you're headed, and what you want, there's going to be a level of, maybe depression, maybe a state of uncertainty. And certainty is powerful. I sometimes talk about goal setting. I said, you get on a ship and you ask the captain, what's his next port of call? That captain will be able to tell you in one sentence, Aruba, one word actually. And because of his certainty of destination and because of his training it would take an act of God for him not to reach his destination. But when you don't know what that destination is, regardless of who you are, what your race or what your gender, I agree with you, Reggie, you're going to have a tough time feeling optimistic about life. And so having those missing gaps sometimes and missing pieces, they contribute to these feelings that we have. At the same time, I think that they kind of multiply some of the other things that if you grew up in a house that was cold and there was no food and you don't know your father and you don't now know who you are, and you get a feeling that you're not good enough because of your race. I think that adds to what everyone else, or maybe our Caucasian's counterpart, may feel. I think it just multiply what it is that we may feel.
You think now, is that because society is set up to target our negative aspects as Black men?
Well, I think a lot of it goes back to, again, what you spoke of as the lack of examples, and maybe, of coming in contact. When I worked at the Department of Juvenile Justice, that was it was the first time that these young men that I worked with, because they were incarcerated, that had an opportunity to spend that much time around good role models, good men. It's like they had to come to jail to have that much quality time with us. And they would talk to us about that. And it's like, you're the first person that ever, gave me an example of what I could be, made me feel loved, so sometimes, having that connection and having those examples before them at a young age, it makes a huge difference.
So where would we start in repairing the mental health of our youth, like locally? If everybody started a local movement, at what point, if I had a group of, say, 10 young men, would I start in terms of repairing mental health? Or would that be subjective to who they are and what they've been through?
I think it's all individualized, but if we was to speak broadly, I think the first cause is identity, getting to know yourself. And once they, kind of what you're good at. And that's one of the classes that I prepare to, I teach, is that you only have to identify one gift and then practice it and master it. And once you know who you are and you sharing that with the world, and the people that we admire the most, whether it's Oprah Winfrey or Steph Curry, that's their formula, is that they were able to identify based on, what they know about themselves, what that gift is. So identifying that gift, man, it's like Tylenol, it's powerful. It gives us direction, a natural high, you got it. When you identify that gift, you have to go practice. It's not no one has to force you to do the work. It's such a burning desire. The problem only come about when you can't do the work. So, it's just fuel. So giving them that rocket ship, the military was my rocket ship. It gave me, the energy to get from one, situation with enough hope, belief, and excitement that, once I was able to tap into that, it was like, okay, what's next?
So do we need more of us that can provide that rocket ship? Because I can talk all day to a group of guys and help them identify their gift. But if they're in a situation to where, say, maybe I can't provide them with an art easel and the paper and all the, or maybe a opportunity to get their art in front of some people. Is that a problem? Do we have enough people in our society that can provide those things? And is there any selfishness involved in not providing some of those things?
Well, I certainly think that our generation have not done the best job of nurturing the next generation. The generation before us gave us civil rights. They walked in front of dogs. They went to jail. they, I mean, they knew that they were not going to benefit from these efforts. And it was because of their generation that we have these positions and titles. I was a battalion chief at the fire department. Man, those guys that came before me, there was no way I could be who I am without them. And today we're not turning around and mentoring and giving back to the community. We buying our big house. We're spending, all of our goods on ourselves. And, so the opportunity, we're moving out of the neighborhood to the suburbs, and so they don't get to come in contact with us, especially as men that often, that's doing well. So, yeah, setting up some mentorship programs. But also, I think with identifying the gift, man, once it'll create a burning desire that they'll figure out where to get the easel from. So, definitely helping provide some of that, but identifying the gift is powerful. Helping them to identify that gift. I mean, you look at President Obama, exact same circumstances, situation. But he tapped into, what was put inside early. He had a different circumstances growing up, but, missing that father, trying to figure out who he was, early childhood, experiment with drugs. I mean, exact same situation, but identifying who you are and how you want to serve. And when you go back and look at his story, when he graduated from Harvard, I mean, he had some of the best job offers across the land to become a lawyer in their law firms. Well, he chose a little small law firm that he could go and practice community activism, because that was, his, what was driving him. And because of that step, it revealed the next step, and the Senate, and then the next step, the president. So it's each, once you kind of get into that area, it'll present to you the next step. So getting them just in their wheelhouse, and the wheelhouse is the area that they have the best chance in the batter box to hit a home run. A lot of pitches come across the strike zone, but not everyone is their pitch. So getting them to know what their pitch is, and man, it gives them the best chance to hit a home run. And I think that by itself gives them, a chance to breathe, so that they can begin to go back and deal with some of the past things that caused them some pain. So I say it this way, is that me being motivated now, if I hadn't been allowed to identify this gift, I mean, I could have been on drugs. I could be in jail or prison or dead. But me identifying the gift gives me an opportunity now to go to see a therapist. You know what I'm saying? And I do have a therapist. And so I want to put that out there. I actually have two. I have one with the VA, and I have one that I've been had since, we started in marriage counseling. So going to marriage counseling, going to see a therapist, being able to walk through some of those things that's been, hanging low, that's causing some dark clouds. Yeah. So, but if I hadn't been able to tap into this, I wouldn't even have the fuel to come back now and begin to deal with some of the things that cause me problems.
Mm-hmm. Now, how would you say that when we get to these young men, how do we start to break down some of the walls of being able to critique yourself and be honest with yourself about what's wrong inside that is leading to some of this mental illness?
Oh man. So one of them, I told Dr. Johnson I would talk about me being ADD. And, I had no clue. Everyone else around me knew, right? So, but let me tell you how I figured out I was ADD. My son, who was struggling in school, who was super smart, grades would be A's, he'll miss 3 assignments, now it's a C. And so we'll get this grade together in this subject, then the next subject in the grade will go down. His backpack was always, unorganized. He just couldn't keep up with his stuff. And one day, I got him on punishment, Reggie. I done took his cell phone. Like, what's going on? So I sat down and I looked at him. I said, son, what is the problem? And he looked at me and he said, Dad, I don't know. And it was that look in his face that sent me searching. So I went and bought a book. It's on my bookshelf right now, Healing ADD. I started reading through the book. And Andrew, I don't know if I can say it, but I'm gonna say it just like I said, hell, I got ADD. I said, I said, the boy got it from me. And as you go about the business of continuing to read, it's a hereditary thing. So, but it completely changed my relationship with my son. We came off punishment. We started to deal with this thing together in a way that really allowed us to connect and understand what was really holding him back. So when we went through the DSM-5 and checked all the lists, so I said, I'm ADD. So then down below, it was a couple more hyper, blurred out answers, can't sit in your seat. That is the difference between ADD and ADHD. He said that. He said, I'm ADHD. So it was, and there was probably a time that I was ADHD. And so, but I didn't know. So it's hard to fix a problem that you're not even sure about. So helping them to actually tap into and figure out what that is holding them back, and to be vulnerable with somebody and have a real discussion about what's going on and what they're really feeling, I think is a huge step, because it was eye-opening for me. And I mean, it changed everything for me once I knew. It's just like when you go to the doctor, something hurting you. Man, until he can tell you what's going on and you can keep telling them about your symptoms, you have a problem. But as soon as I figured that out, I was like, got it.
So speaking of that vulnerability, growing up, we kind of learned, or at least I did, we kind of learned that, you ain't supposed to cry. You got to be the toughest dude on the block. You got to have the women. You got to be good at sports. So I think that it's very important to, even when we're talking about helping them find what that problem is, we got to get to a point to where that they trust and believe that being vulnerable actually will help you get over this problem. Because a lot of us don't believe that. We think, if I show you that much of myself, or if I express my emotion that deeply, then I'm some kind of punk. And we gotta find a way to get our young men away from that.
100%.
It's dangerous.
Yeah, how many times you was told you better not cry?
You better not cry. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, you trying to get yourself together and not cry, because you were gonna be in trouble or get the spanking for crying. So now it's like you want us to display, this emotional side of us that we've been taught to suppress. So, even so, a part of that is having these type discussions to new fathers and new people in the family, saying, hey, if you're hurt, let the child display his hurt and his pain and his feelings, so they don't have to suppress it. And then, later on in life, it comes out in the form of anger or whatever it may be. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then that starts affecting your relationship with your woman, with your kids, your co-workers, everybody.
Exactly. 100%. And I was talking, a part of that being vulnerable. I mean, in between, there was times that, I was in sessions like once a week, once every 2 weeks. I went through some really, really tough stuff. My father, I told you, was shot and left paralyzed. At that time, my mom had died of breast cancer and lung cancer. The marriage was struggling. My kids had became teenagers, so it was it was a dark moment, right? So, but in between those counseling sessions, man, I had some really good friends that I could be vulnerable with, that I can open up and share with them my truest hurts, pains, and concerns, and not feel judged. And what was great about it is that they never brought the subject back up again unless I brought it back up. It's like they just let me vent. So they didn't swing back around like a week later, be like, well, how did that go? They know that I just need to open up. And if I brought it back up, we talked about it some more. If I didn't, it was our normal conversation. But having those brothers, and we got to the point, man, which was really strange to me. We getting off the phone, we said, love you, bro. It's like,
hey, listen, that's new. That's new for me too. I can admit that. That's, if it's not your sibling or something like that, that's new for me. It's new for us to be able to tell just our homeboy, yo, I love you, man.
Yeah, yeah. So it was, but it was an awesome feeling to know there was somebody outside of your family that cared about you, that loved you, and was there for you, that would take your phone call regardless of what time of day night was, and even sometimes, man, remind you of who you are. Because man, you begin to doubt yourself on who you are. Did I cause this? You know what I mean? It's like, Mike, dude, do you know? And start reminding me of who all I was and all the things I did and all the kids I have taught. And man, and it's like, dog, you can't go there. You know what I mean? Just reminding me, because in the process of it, the self-critic will step in, and man, next thing you know, you can't even get out of bed. So, just reminding me, of all the years they have known me, you know, of that, who I really was, based on, what I had started to think and believe.
And it's tough. And you touched on it earlier. It's tough when you know that you have a ton of positive potential in you and you can't get it out. Seem like all your plans fail, and you're thinking optimistically. You start reading books, and you start learning about things like the law of attraction and purpose and all of this stuff, and you still seem to be running into these roadblocks. And you really need to have somewhere to go to take that pain and frustration. A lot of times we don't.
Absolutely, man. So, one of the deals after I actually became a licensed, I became a certified coach with John Maxwell. Outside of you needing therapy, psychotherapy, from a licensed counselor, coaching is like one of the most powerful things that's going on. Because, it's through the process of asking questions, of letting a person find the answers, that gives them the right next step. And in that process, when we think about all of our high achievers, all have coaches, voice coaches, acting coaches, shooting coaches, receiver coaches, quarterback coaches. So we think maybe it's there's a difference between us and them. The truth is, they got personal trainers. They have personal financial coaches. Everybody has an area that they get stuck in, that we struggle to try to figure out what's going on. And mentors and coaches are save the learning curve. They press decades into days. Without a coach, man, we'll struggle with this for a lifetime. With somebody else on board, I'm a personal trainer. I help people, women, get in shape, lose weight. Without them meeting with me regularly, providing support, accountability, motivation, it's going to be tough for them in this particular area, even though they're really talented in their profession, lawyers, dentists. So, but this particular area, and for some people, it may be money. And some people, it may be weight loss. Some people, it may be gambling. But without somebody there to help with this one area that's maybe the thorn, you can struggle with this your whole life and never really become successful at it. So I think the best thing to do is if when we can identify those people that we have an admiration for, especially if they already are doing what we want to do, tap into them, because that's what franchises do. It's like, instead of figuring out everything for yourself, just buy a franchise. They're going to give you a winning formula.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a great basketball player, man, find somebody better than you. You know what I mean? And tap into them.
This is helpful. It's helping me tonight. So
me too, man.
Yeah. It's
So
good.
it's
We definitely need more of this.
Yeah. So I'm like, it's gonna be hard to outperform your best thought. And this thought got you here, but it won't get you to the next place. I'm gonna pull Dr. Johnson back into the conversation.
Well, I'm listening. I'm taking notes. I'm over here writing.
I'll stay with, think about
I'm
it.
just playing.
I don't know what age you are, Reg, but when I think about some of the decisions and that I make now at almost 50, I could have not made these decisions at 24. What allowed me to make these decisions at 50 that I couldn't make at 24? new information, experiences. You know what I mean? So we gotta always be about the business of getting new information, new thoughts. So if we're finding ourselves stuck, you got to go get some more information. That's why people pay consultants. If you're building this huge project and you have never built one before, it's like, let me find somebody has built 100 of them successfully. That person will save you so much time and energy. Then, I mean, you may never even get it off the ground by yourself, but your consultant, just keep that ball moving. Ain't nothing but a coach.
You know, like a lot of the decisions that I made early in my life were based on a perception of image. So, and it got me in a lot of trouble. So, this formula of working from the inside out, how do we get to a place to where, from a societal standpoint, we flip the lesson? Because most people grow up learning to become adults externally. You know, go to school, get you a job, make the money, get you a car, where really it should be, the steps should be reversed, and it should be more about finding what you were purposed for, healing those wounds, or getting that coaching, you know, from an internal or from a spiritual level, and then allowing that to produce the external thing. So how do we get to a point as a whole, and is the answer to that just having more local mentorship? How do we get to a point to where we can flip that around?
100% spot on, man. Having more mentorship, but even us, you know, I'm thankful that Dr. Johnson had the thought to put this together, and it's because it can be shared to people that having these conversations. So it's like, I tell people now, I don't work for money. I work for purpose. I work for purpose.
Oh, I just heard that today.
Yeah. So, but and the difference is whether you're healing from the outside, doing these things from the outside or inside, is that whereas I'm intentionally driving to a beautiful destination versus being driven back to the pain. Because when we don't heal and we don't know what it is, and we have this need, we're all searching for identity, recognition, belonging, respect. We need those things. And when you have that and you don't have enough understanding about yourself, you'll go to destinations that are not good for you because you have something to prove. So that's when we look like we are successful, but behind the scene, we struggle to pay the bills. You know, we glammed up, we have the BMWs, we have all of this stuff, but the stress at night of trying to keep all of these balls in the air is the difference between what you said, doing it from the outside versus in the inside. Because in the inside, when you do it properly, and you allow yourself to be who you are, and you don't have anything to prove, and you're working out of your purpose, it allows you to live, you know, a meaningful life that sometimes below your means. You have money and energy to give back. And in addition to that, it's so therapeutic to be doing the work. And the work, there's no difference between the work and fun. The line is so blurred that you really don't even know the difference, you know? So, you know, I talked to you, I've talked to Dr. Johnson, I made it known, hey, if there's something I can do, I keep saying over and over again, let me know. And I say, and I keep telling, I said, why do I say that? Because, man, teachers gotta teach. That's what I do. You know what I mean? So if you don't have a budget or whatever, let me know. I ain't saying that I'm gonna do everything for free, but this experience of loving and giving back is something really, you know, it's therapeutic for me to be able to give back to the next person that grew up like I did. You know, I want us all to win. So yeah, learning that, you know, and growing up in the world of social media, which is something that we haven't even touched on yet. I mean, that's a whole nother problem. that's causing depression and anxiety, and you know, so but you know, I'll let you ask to lead off on that one.
Well, obviously, you spend enough time on social media, you see what people call their best. And if a person has any sense of self-reflection, a lot of times it's easy to end up in depression because you looking at your situation honestly, but you log on to Instagram or Facebook, and all of your friends, they at the party, they just bought a new car, they sitting on the back porch with their cigar and they drink, and you may be in a situation and you looking at that, and it's easy to put that reflection on yourself and start to judge yourself instead of being aware where you are in your own journey. And so that this social media thing is dangerous. I'm glad that we are old enough to, some of us do have a dependency on it even at our age, but I'm happy. I'm very thankful that I'm not in the situation that some of these kids where that's all they know.
And 100% spot on. And then what we know is that most of the time, a lot of it's just a facade. I mean, people took 100 pictures and 20 filters to get this image. I remember, no, man, I remember this group that used to be always together, hanging out. And every time you see them on social media, man, it looked like they were having a ball. I'm not kidding. This is a true story. Then I was invited to celebrate a birthday party. Went to the location. I got there, man. Everybody heads down, nobody talking, nobody doing nothing. Everybody strolling. It's just, and that phone went out and said, "We live." And man, you talking about the turn up. I mean, they came in there, woo, woo. I walked out of there. I was like confused because I thought that all of these, things that they were posted online, they were having the best time ever. Man, they didn't start having the best time until somebody said we was live. And I mean, they came all around. It was rah, 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 rah. So just knowing that a lot of that, man, it ain't even real. You know what I mean? So when you comparing yourself to somebody who has staged their best, they in Aruba, but they don't know how they're gonna pay their bills when they get home, or whatever the circumstance or situation. And so but for a young person, that may be really difficult for them to accept, especially for, I mean, you got those out, I mean, it's just so much going on in terms of body image that's been, put out there, success in terms of sports, athletes, cars, it's just so much. We were taught, I had posted earlier, not to keep up with the Joneses, over and over. Hey, we don't keep up with the Joneses. Well, growing up, the Joneses was that one family in the neighborhood that was doing pretty good. Now the Joneses is all of Facebook and Instagram. I mean, you compare, I mean, we even compare ourselves to Beyonce. It's like, when I was growing up, Michael Jackson was just somebody I admired. I didn't look at his life and think, well, my life is no good. Today, they look at the people that's at the highest level, and they becoming, they comparing themselves to them. And it's going to be hard to win against somebody that's got this super gift and talent that, unfortunately, you haven't been able to identify what yours is yet. And even if you do, it may not present that level of success.
Now, do you feel that it's important for us to start to plug our youth into our identity as Black men before slavery in order to help raise some of our self-esteem and understanding what we are capable of? Because a lot of our identity is based on what society has fed to us when we were brought to this country, and not from what we come from.
Absolutely. You know, I know my timeline. You know, slavery was ended in 1865. I have an ID card. When my grandfather died, he lived with us. I used to cut his hair. I used to bring him snacks home from Kroger. This is, you know, so I have his ID card when he died. I got two things that when he died from him. I got his ID card and a little 22 pistol.
Mhm.
And on his ID card, it's got an X on it. He was born in 1905. Slavery was ended in 1865, which meant his parents were slaves. Now I live with the man. My parents was born, my mother was born in 1949. We didn't even have a right to vote. I was born in 72, 5 years after the Civil Rights Act. Now you know, when I got in the game, they already got 200 points on the board. So you're looking at me saying, you know, and we know my mom didn't have an education. My father came from a tough circumstances situation. Mine was tough. And now I'm supposed to get in the game and somehow win when they already have 200 points on the board. So we got to deal with the fact that we're trying to, here I am, running myself in the ground, trying to win this race. You know, so when you look at a track, right, it's got 8 lanes. The inside circle is the shortest part of the track. In order to make it fair, they create what's called a stagger. We having to win this race without the stagger. And so when you up against that, and whether you can actually communicate what you're feeling about that, if you can communicate it, great, because mentally you're going to be so much better. But when you can't even communicate what you're up against, oh, that's a whole nother ballgame. But when we can have this conversation and somebody can say, that's it right there, that's what I'm feeling, that begins to release us. You know what I mean? So, I mean, they got 400 years of wealth building on us. They have 400 years of understanding on us. I'm still teaching a class called the Young Investors Boot Camp. It's 2022. Our kids still don't understand how the stock market works. Many of us don't understand because our parents, the history of this country, my parents couldn't teach me anything about the stock market. I told you that my mother picked cotton. Now, how she was going to teach me about the stock market? But every day we go, you know, so I asked a group of kids, I said, let me ask you a question, right? I said, what age did someone tell you that you don't have to work for money? They always said, never. I said, well, so now this seems like something illegal. I mean, people start backing up, not work for money. I said, well, let me ask you this. I said, let's say that I buy 500 shares of stocks from Starbucks Coffee. I'm now part owner of that company. And every day Starbucks go out and sell 300, 400 million cups of coffee per day all around the world. In 3 months, Starbucks is going to send me a dividend check based on the shares that I own. How much work did I do for that money? It's a zero. So we are in the line buying the coffee while they get the dividend checks. We're the one that's buying Nikes. We got 20 pairs. They got 20 shares. So when we can't begin to reverse this and say, hey, let's own some of what you purchased that allow you to make money while you sleep, to take that one gift and create 8 sources of income from that one gift. Then, you know, from that, we can begin. So a lot of what I'm doing, and man, it's just, you know, so, you know, I took the one gift of love and encouragement and teaching and turned it into multiple streams of income. You know, I retired from the fire department. I own a gym, teaching, coaching. I do workshops, teaching, coaching. I wrote a book, teaching, coaching. You know, so it's having all of this just one gift. So when we can give them that, then that every cent that you earn, you're not having to work for. And then in addition to that, when you get out of the mindset that money is just something to spend, when you begin to see money as a 24/7 employee that's working hard in the paint on your behalf while you sleep, then yeah, you can begin to live a lifestyle that you can afford without running yourself in the ground. And then you can begin to leave something for the next generation so that they don't have to work as hard as what we work. But back to that question, because of our past and history, we're lacking that understanding. We were told to go off and earn a good living. We know about earned income. We still don't understand passive income. And that's money making money while you sleep. And there's nothing illegal about it. They do it all the time. And so that history of watching your parents struggle, you not having anything, and watching another race have everything will create something inside of you to have something and appear to have something, even when it's not even your best interest to have it because you can't afford it. And you having it actually makes them richer and make you poor. This thing of running from slavery and what you saw and experienced caused you to make decisions that force you back into slavery because now you're slave to debt. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's all connected. And so we got to go back and we got to deal with that to show them what happened, how it happened, and why you're in the state that you are, and what happened, and even and what this did for me. It allowed me to work, to have a better relationship with my dad. Here it is, a man that grew up where he couldn't even be a man. They learned to do drugs, alcohol, do these, they were coping. For these Black men that was our fathers, they was taught to be afraid. They couldn't protect themselves. They couldn't earn a living. Strong Black men didn't know how, they had a system stacked up against them. They didn't know their fathers. So it allowed me to heal and even begin to extend some grace and begin to forgive him.
Do we there's a wall or there's a obstacle out here now where uh it's been kind of perceived that the world doesn't need men anymore. How do we get into affecting our young men's minds? Actually, it's a two-part question. Get into affecting our young men's minds to where we can maintain value in their young minds. And then at the same time, like being in the school system, where some of the frustration that I face is that because of academic curriculum, a lot of times we have programs, but we only get to see the kids or the young men once a week. So they get a lot of this that we are talking about on, say, Monday, but then from Tuesday until the next Monday, they go right back into that atmosphere that has supplied them with all of this negativity. How do we go about trying to combat that?
That's why, I built all my programs around, a lot of pictures, a lot of videos. You take a look at Isaiah Thomas, who went off to college, came home for his first visit. There was no lights in the house, no food in the house. He said, I knew I had to do something different. So, I say to these young men that's growing up struggling is that, every goal that's worth achieving is going to require you to persevere. Now, you're going to be ahead of all your peers because you've been practicing perseverance like me your whole life, So, understanding that thing that drives you, and then you're already going to have that, that toughness about you. Let's now put that in a positive direction. You're going to have to delay some gratification. Yeah, let's push hard in the paint on that. Let's use your vision to create some discipline. And, Dr. Miles Monroe said, vision gives you discipline. He said, when you admire people that's, on the basketball court or actors or actresses, what you're looking at is not discipline, you're looking at vision. They saw themselves doing this, and that vision actually was so powerful that it provided. I mean, you don't even when you're so motivated to do something, you know, Kobe, you know, dribbling that ball, man, people have to make you come in the house. You know what I'm saying? It's that vision. So giving them that vision of who they are and where they want to be is really, really powerful. And then, you know, for me, I always learn through patterns, 2, 4, 6, 8. I'm counting by twos. And Reggie, what I saw was that every Black man that I knew growing up when I was a kid that sold drugs always ended up in prison or addicted to drugs. I knew. My mom pressed in me early on, you reap what you sow. First law, a third law of the universe, the cause and effect. That you cannot win in that game. You just got to know that it may look good. They may look like they're having all the fun, but if you go back and you look at everybody that's in the community that's ever played that game, nobody's ever won. Making sure that they understand that nobody's ever won at that game. And it, you know, and hopefully some of those people that has played the game that can talk to them and say, hey, it's you can't beat the house, you know? So for them to set their sights on something bigger, look at the law of large numbers. When we look at the people that's doing well in life, we see a few things that's going on. They either got an education, they got a skill, they got a certification, a meaningful way to earn a living doing something that they enjoy. They avoided drugs and alcohol. A lot of them, you know, are in church. So go look at the patterns. Don't trust me. If everybody went that route is struggling and suffering, and everybody went this route is doing well, accept the pattern. So, you know, just you know, because here's what we know is they want to win. We just got to tap into that.
And getting them to believe first.
Yeah.
That's the first step to anything.
100.
Okay.
Y'all want to continue on, and you know, it's way past time, but you can keep on. I mean, I'm just checking in.
Well, you know,
But it's enough for me.
I think that we'll leave a little bit for the next time. Maybe we need to have another one. But I do want to, I want to add a couple of things that do, you know, if I want to say a couple of things that for us that may be listening, that may be struggling with anxiety, depression, ADD, all of those things is that, you know, don't be too big of a man to get some help if you find yourself in trouble. Find somebody you can at least talk to that you can trust. Open yourself up and, you know, also, you know, exercise definitely helps because it's a natural high of reducing serotonin and dopamine in the brain. It's just movement. So you think about stagnation, stagnant water. What happens in stagnant water? Nothing grows. It's got a smell, it's odor, but talking is movement. So walking is movement. Exercise is movement. Just moving is enough to get you out of that funky place. And if you still need some more, get you some therapy, you know? And you know, I had somebody say, I got a therapist and Jesus, you know? So it's not, you know, that if you're a Christian, you may not still, I mean, you know, I talked to a friend, I said, if you have a heart attack, are you gonna go to the doctor? He said, yeah. I said, well, the same Jesus that produced cardiologists gave us psychologists. you know, He gave us people that specialize in these areas. So be wise enough to go get the help you need, you know. But meditation, talking to friends, exercising, music, you know, I talk to my clients, get enough sleep, you know, 7 hours of sleep, enough water and some food. Now, Reggie, let me ask you this question and we'll wrap on this.
All right.
Imagine you only got 4 hours of sleep, okay?
Yeah.
And now it's 3 o'clock in the evening and you still haven't eaten.
Right.
How motivated are you gonna be?
I'm not motivated, and I'm probably very hard to deal with. Not
Yeah,
motivated at all, other than trying to find me something to eat and some rest.
exactly.
Yeah,
So, so not getting enough sleep, enough water, and enough fuel can cause, a drop in the mood and energy in a way that feels often like depression. So, and I know that when I get hungry, physiologically, here's what happens to me. I'm a goal hound. I love goals. Man, but when I get hungry, they move so far away from me. I lose my optimism. So I have to eat in order to even stay optimistic.
yeah,
So fueling ourselves properly and exercise, getting enough sleep, having a friend to talk to, in addition to, getting to church, prayer, Sunday school, music. And when you still need help, get you a therapist. Don't be too big of a man to get you a therapist, brother. We need you.
definitely, definitely. I appreciate that, and I do need a therapist. And the only thing that I would add to that is, for all of our brothers watching is, we kind of touched on it earlier, is it's okay to hurt.
Mm.
It's okay to hurt, and it's okay, and it's very beneficial to you to express that hurt.
100, man. There was a time I've always been sometimes this emotional person. And man, I used to cry often, man, but it was so releasing, man. Man, it would just release me. And man, it's been years had gone by. And one day something happened that hit me to the point, man, and I got to cry out, and I forgot how good it felt just to have, to be able to cry and let loose all of that was pent up inside. So, somebody
Sure.
may say you're a punk if you cry, but
Well, I recently was in a situation where I felt like I needed to cry and couldn't because I had pent it up for so long. And I would tell brothers that, I would much rather be in that position where somebody was calling me a punk than be in a position to where you need to get this out of you and you can't.
yeah, 100. Because then we're gonna hurt somebody else.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, let me ask y'all a question before we go. I wasn't going to ask this, but so again, you talked about if men are watching. What about for women that are watching, that have men in their lives, whether they're their partners, spouses, their children, they're the mothers of sons, grandchildren, or somebody raising a grandson, et cetera. Anybody that has a Black man in their life, because you talked about, both of you talked about several different things about what do we do next? So what would you say to that woman that's watching? What do we need to do?
I'm smart enough not to say nothing.
See, I'm looking at you and I don't care if it's being recorded. Yeah.
Well,
Well, I keep doing my finger the wrong way.
yeah, I think that I think the first thing that I would say is understand that your man or your son or your brother uh, has problems just like you do, and may have problems uh, dealing with emotions just like a woman would, even though there's this false thing out here that they say women are emotional and men are not. Well, I say BS. You know what I mean? Because God gave us all these emotions, and He didn't put them in us for no reason. And so I think a lot of times uh, women kind of get the same messages, and if they are raising sons alone, a lot of times a woman will try to create a son that from that formula of you cry too much, or things along that line, some of the same things that we've been talking about. So I think that that's kind of where I would start, is understand that yes, as men, a lot of the internal struggle um, is shared between us as male and female. We are not absent of these struggles.
Spot on. I have a book on my shelf that's called Search. Um, Wild at Heart, Wild at Heart. And chapter 8 in that book, I was recommended that book, says it's called the Wound of the Father.
Mm.
And it says most of us, whether a man or a woman, if we were hurt, we probably were hurt by our father. And sometimes, you know, there's good men out there that's trying to be good fathers. And sometimes they're not allowed to be.
Yeah.
If you got somebody, you know, and even when you look at Barack's book, Dreams of My Father, his parents, his grandparents lifted the father up so much with admiration about who that man was, even though he was absent in his life. It was those stories that actually empowered him. So at minimum, if you can give a person hope by the stories of what you can say positive about the man, at minimum, understand the hurt that you do to the child by speaking negatively of the man. You might need to speak negative, but try not to do it to the child, because that hurt that you do over and over and over inside of that child, speaking about who his father is and what he's done or what he hasn't done, every time you do that, I mean, you just keep digging into that wound, digging into that wound, digging into that wound. You know, he may not be the best guy, but let us do no more harm that's already been done. And if he's fighting to be in that child's life or working, don't make him fight to be. You know, don't punish him through his child or her child. You know, there's a lot of guys out here that's not doing what they should. I understand, and I know it's tough sometimes raising these young men by yourself, or sometimes men don't have what you think they should have. Extend some grace.
Yeah.
Work at forgiving, teach the child forgiveness, because if we can forgive, a lot of the hurt that we feel will go away. But if you put all of that hurt and resentment in child inside and don't teach to forgive, we just compounded the effects of what has already been done.
Definitely, that's a big one. And just to piggyback on that method of doing things, not only does it dig into the wound, but it also adds to the lack of self-esteem of that child. And you don't have to, as women, you don't have to be talking directly to the child. You need to be aware. You can't be in the kitchen with your homegirls talking about how bad your men are with the babies in the back room, assuming that they don't hear you, because they do. And you know, I was real when I was 7 years old. I was 6 when I saw this. I saw my daddy beat my mama teeth out her mouth. Now, when I was 7, I remember a night laying on the couch, laying with my head on my mama's lap, and I said to my mama, I hate my daddy. And thankfully, my mama was a woman that was not raised in that light. And she told me right then, she said, I don't care what you saw or what you know about some of the things that have gone on in this house. She said, you never can hurt your daddy because he's the reason why you are here. And from that point on, now my dad has gone on, he's passed on already, but from that point on, it always left a door open to where I knew that was my daddy and I needed to love him. But the biggest thing it did, it kept me from reflecting that onto myself, because we are going to identify with who our father is, whether we know it or not.
100%. And I had some of the exact same experiences, Reggie, I've seen and witnessed, and some may go even a little bit deeper. But my mom always, pressed on me that he was your father and you respect, you should respect him. And we were able to, get a relationship, and out of that, a lot of healing has taken place. He's since passed, but I can certainly say you're not going to do the child any good by being very, at some point you can speak if you need to speak the truth. That's okay, but you need to do it with the energy of trying to heal the child. Not, man, I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna say this and then I'll be done. Children love both of their parents. And when you speak negatively about the other parent, you only hurt the child. I don't care what happened, he still loved his daddy. So, and I can tell you for certain that desire to have a relationship with his father, that's a whole nother story we can talk about later, never goes away. Never. That's all I got.
Well, thank you for answering questions. Yeah, I don't have anything else. I have no more questions, no more reflections, no nothing. Like I said, I thank you all for your honesty, your vulnerability. I can't say the word right now, but y'all know what I'm saying. That just opening yourselves up to help somebody else to heal and to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Thank you for your time. But lastly, please tell the people where they can find you, whether that's social media, your phone number, website, email, whatever y'all want.
You know what? I got a couple of social media platforms, but I don't even really know my tags to tell you the truth. I think at Reggie Leak, REGILEAK is my Instagram. I'm not sure what it is on Facebook, but my email address is REGILEAK@gmail.com. So if you want to get in contact with me, I am open to talk about these things with you. And I look forward to it.
All right. Reggie, you said on Facebook, are you under your name on Facebook? I'm trying to look it up my phone.
I think so.
Right,
I think I am. Let me see if I can open it up.
Let me see if you're the Reginald or Reggie. I see what you up under here. I can't remember right. Let me see if I can pull up your last name right quick.
So I'm under Reginald. Reginald.
Okay,
Leak.
that's why I can't find you. Okay.
LEAK.
Reginald, did you say?
Yeah, that's
all
me.
Right, Reginald Leak. Is that with an E on the end or just the K?
No E, just the K. LEAK.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Anything else? You got a YouTube? Did you say your YouTube channel?
No, I don't. Andrew.
Don't want them on there yet?
And
you don't want them on there
no,
yet?
let me get back. Yeah, let me get back to that. We'll have that the next time.
All right. So next time, y'all stay tuned because he's a nice poet. He has some great poetry out there. Yes. I like to tell on the people. So put you out there when it's time. So stay tuned.
I appreciate it.
Yes. All right, Mr. Thomas.
Well, on the webs, you can find me on the website at michaelbootcampthomas.com, michaelbootcampthomas.com, and on Instagram and Facebook, Michael Bootcamp Thomas. And my email is info@michaelbootcampthomas. So if you find me, Michael Bootcamp Thomas, you'll find me.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. I'm sorry, go ahead. Oh, what'd you say, Reggie?
It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Yes. And I can't say thank you enough times. So again, when you watch this, somebody please share, and please reach out to these great men. So thank
Reggie,
you.
I enjoyed the conversation with you, brother. I look forward to meeting you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Same here.
All right, brother.
All right.